Welcome back, everyday business leaders. I'm Melanie Ake, your host for today's show, coming to you from JP the Geek Studio right here in Greenwood, Indiana. I'm thrilled to have you with us today because we're talking about mental health with Jonathon Wade from Connection Café. Join me as we connect and celebrate remarkable business leaders from our very own community who are redefining the way we think and grow. Remember, subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you never miss an episode. Are you ready to meet Jonathon? I am. Let's go. Hi, John.
Well, hello.
I am really excited that you're here. I pulled you in through a connection. Don't we love connections?
We do love connections.
That your wife, I had worked with her when she was at a previous employer and did some work on training and team development. And then I realized that she was actually connected to you. And I wanted to know your story because you're making an impact in our local community.
Hopefully making an impact. Hopefully.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So hopefully that's the I guess the word, hopefully, making an impact. So.
You are, absolutely. So tell us about where you are currently and what your role is.
Okay, so I'm actually, so I live in Indiana, but I work in Illinois. So I'm from a small town right outside of Danville, Illinois. I teach at a two-year junior liberal arts college in Danville in the behavioral science department. So I've been teaching there for, I feel like forever. I think I started teaching my first class in 2011. So I think I was like 28, which is crazy that now I'm in my 40s, but it's good. So I love it. I've been there full time since 2018. Prior to that, I worked in mental health, worked with families in the child welfare system, worked with kids, juvenile, in the probation system. Did a lot of advocacy work. Did some consulting stuff. Worked with some school systems, some kids in school systems. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of been around everywhere, just kind of bouncing around. But my calling, I guess, would have been to teach. So I kind of fell in love with that early on, and I've been very blessed and fortunate that I get paid to talk about stuff.
You followed your passion.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I guess I say I followed my passion, but I think it was the right people in the right time in the right place in my life, and I think it worked out the way it was supposed to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so that's it's my day job, and then inside that job, one of the things that got us connected. So about 4 years ago. Early onset of the COVID pandemic, being in education, I was sent home for, which was supposed to be 2 weeks, ended up being like two years. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time in my basement, which is more time than
not a good thing, right?
So I'm extroverted, so it's like I'm just like in my basement on Zoom, early on in COVID, I had kind of realized that, so my area, my background is more in the social sciences, so sociology, social psychology, that there was going to be a lasting impact, that there were things happening to us as individuals, being isolated, you basically turned off a country. And I was very worried early on about what happens when you take relational beings and you separate them from relationships. And especially with people who may be dealing with or struggling with mental health. Mm-hmm. What happens when you take a group of people that are prone to isolation and you isolate them? We shut down a lot of mental health agencies, hospitals, access to treatment, all these things shut down. And so early on I was like, well, when all this opens back up, how are we going to bring people back together? Mm-hmm. And I love coffee, and I love talking, and I love teaching. And so I like to think of it as I applied a old wisdom in a new way, and that how could we creatively create a space for people to come together and talk about mental health and wellness in a non-threatening kind of way. And people love coffee shops, and so I decided to create a free coffee shop at my school.
Called the Connection Café.
Called the Connection Café. Well, at my school, it was going to be for my school, but it started in my backyard. Is where I began the early concept of, and it's kind of morphed into much bigger than I initially thought it would. Mm-hmm. We started off with, just hoping to do, some small meetings and having people come in. And I think last year, through September or May 2022 to September 2023, I think we presented to over probably 800 people.
Wow.
From the community that came in. Talked about a variety of mental health topics.
Bigger than your backyard, right?
Bigger than my backyard, which is where it started, build it and they will come kind of thing.
But that's the thing. All great ideas start on a napkin, right?
Yes,
that's what they say.
They do.
Yeah.
And I, going back, I was very fortunate that I have a very tolerant wife who lets me, I don't know if she lets me, but she allows me to come up with these crazy ideas. And then I also, it doesn't help that my boss and my school is equally willing to indulge me in my flights of fancy, I guess.
But you know that you get inspired, right? You see something that needs to be solved. And so it's like there's got to be a way for us to do something that's different. And I think your background in all of those areas, from mental health to probation to teaching, and really identifying, like, if people don't get this out, being an extrovert, right? I would say I'm an introvert, which people go, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. But being an extrovert, especially, you go, I can't sit here. I am not going to sit here on Zoom for 2 years and be isolated from that. So you really pushed on to say, we have to find better ways to do this.
Yeah, you make it sound so much better than mine was.
It's taking the action step, though. People could have ideas all day long.
Yeah, I think there was a, going back to, my personality, Cassie, my beautiful, lovely wife, she was going to work every day. She was in a job that, they weren't, she was an essential worker, so they were going to work every day. And then my daughter was going to school every day, and I was doing lectures on Zoom, which I'm pretty sure the majority of students, I think, that showed up, logged on and then just went back to bed. Mm-hmm. And early on, I realized that I was just spending a lot of time alone, and especially dealing with some of my own mental health issues. This was not a good time for me. And so it was kind of twofold. One was I needed to do something. I needed something to distract me. But also, two, is I didn't want to come back to school with... I wanted some way to figure out how to take the distraction that I needed to create something positive versus me just kind of tinkering in the backyard, as my lovely wife would say. It's really kind of been a process of, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew I was doing something, and
you were moving it forward, though.
I was moving something forward.
Right.
The idea was to create that conversation, and I didn't necessarily know how I was going to create the conversation. And I think the first event I held, I think the title was breaking stigma or something, and I was terrified that no one was going to show up. Mm-hmm. And so I had my big, beautiful cafe, and we had sent, and I think we ended up having about 85 people show up, and then local providers showed up, and that was really getting mental health professionals on board. I think is really was most key. I think when I started, you're talking to leadership and management, and we can kind of speak a little to that. And I think I've always been a grassroots kind of person. I think that things are best when they start at the bottom, kind of bottom up change. And so the idea was if I can create enough ruckus at the foundation that other people will, kind of see the inherent value and want to be a part of that. And that's really been the most surprising of who has wanted to join. And for about the first 7 or 8 months, I had students that were working it for free, volunteering, making the coffee. I had local professionals that were willing to come in and teach and train, and so it was just. And then we got culinary involved at the college, and we got the computer people and the marketing people and advising involved, and we've gotten some endowments, so we've got some community donor funding.
And how long have you been doing this?
I think three. I think
years?
About 2 years. About 2022, I think, is when we went back to campus, and I think that's really when we started. I think my first presentation was in May of 2022, so we had just gotten back for that spring semester.
But here's the thing, right? You talk about it like it wasn't that big of a deal. We just did this. But having 85 people show up, having an idea, saying all these people that really need to be a part of it, they felt your heart because it was authentic to what you needed as well to heal. And so these people responded, and now it's turned into something that really the community's embracing.
Yes, I think that there is definitely I think people are understanding it. I think
because it's different.
It is different,
right? And they can identify with, like, I don't have to really I can show up to support someone else. I can show up to either just listen, right?
Yeah.
I can show up to share. I can show up for coffee.
Yes.
Right?
So all of those things are there, but I think I think the reason that this has been successful is it is different. You have this random professor just making lattes and giving coffee away for free. And that's been the other thing. We've been very fortunate. I think we've done 12 or 13 events, and we've never had to charge anyone anything. So the people who do attend, have been willing to donate, money. Like I said, my wife I started Uber driving. That's actually initially how I paid for it, is I started Uber driving during COVID, which was also a unique experience. So I drove a Lyft, I drove an Uber, I sold my record collection. So there was all kinds of just random things. I was kind of like a dog, chasing a car. And then we're like, all right, well, let's do something formally. And then I think last year, I presented on it at a conference last year, and everyone that was in the conference, at least the presentation, were like, "Oh, what are you going to do with it next?" And my boss was there, and then the vice president of student affairs, Dr. Bridges, was there, and Dr. Penny were there, and I'm like, I am not organized. I am not an organized person. I am just doing things.
You're just the idea guy.
Yeah, I'm just doing things, and at some point, someone is going to have to step in and help me kind of organize it, arrange it. So I started. So now I have some more people that are much more suited for kind of the strategic day-to-day stuff. So I've kind of been stepping a little bit. I just want to make coffee and then talk to people about mental health. I don't really necessarily know how to, organize it and promote it and get people to, contribute. And so it's really, I've been very fortunate. I think the presentation I did was actually, I think it was called A Professor and Friends. And I've really been blessed with colleagues who have been willing to entertain these ideas and participate in these. The video I'd sent you, the presentations were called Coffee Coffee, Cake, and Conversation, I think was the name. And so, Don, a colleague of mine, and then Dana, another colleague of mine who runs the culinary department, and then Don, who works in advising, they made cupcakes for everyone. And, so everyone kind of gave a little bit to kind of really kind of make this thing kind of grow. We're currently planning on next fall holding our first official mental health conference. So awesome. That's kind of a big project.
But it's, it's that one step to get the word out to say, this is how it's impacted the community. And so from there, it really inspires other people that say, I have an idea like that, to give them permission to go, well, maybe you have the idea. Maybe you're the one that follows through to say, I want to help either get donors. I want to help get people there. They know people in the community that need to be a part of it. Yeah. That's how it starts. And the step of taking the action gives you the clarity, right? I don't know until I take
I'm
the
still
step.
waiting on clarity. I'm still waiting on, and it's hard because
Hi, I'm Melanie Yake, founder of Everyday Leaders, and I'm excited to share with you a new training resource for your team called the Leadership Game. The Leadership Game is a tool. It's administered exclusively by John Maxwell team members. And when you bring this assessment tool in to lead your organization, it shows you the current level of your leadership and gives you tangible and actionable results to move forward. So don't delay. Get in the game, the Leadership Game, exclusively from Everyday Leaders.
So I initially started with the idea. I think when I first decided I was going to do something, I think I had presented this to a couple community members, part of some groups I was a part of, and I remember saying if no one wants to do it, then I'll just I'll do it in my office. I'll just build it in my office, which I ended up doing. There's a couple of pictures that I sent where it's that's my office where I'm putting this gargantuous machine and cart together, and I think it's. The hope is that, yes, that it inspires people to, you can have a Connection Café anywhere. You need a pot of coffee, you can have a McDonald's, you can have it anywhere. And I think that's normalizing the conversation, but also, you can have this at your kitchen table, you can have this in your office, you can have this at your board meeting. Because I think a lot of the problems that we're having now is we're not talking about the things that we need to talk about. And it's almost like we have to kind of, I don't want to say trick people, but we almost have to all right, let's set up all the pieces so we can have these conversations.
It's a safe space, right? It's a safe space because people are just now starting to come out. I mean, the suicide rate, the drug rate, all of these things have increased.
Yeah, I think 2022 was the historical high of suicides in the U.S. As long as they've been keeping track of them, and those have obviously those problems have been here.
But the trigger, right? It's the trigger that triggered you to go, we need to maybe do this a little bit better.
Yeah. That was, I think early on, I was concerned with the numbers in, pre-COVID. And, going back to the impact is, we're now, 3 or 4 years out, and the need is so much larger than ever before. And I think it's even more important to kind of think about, we kind of think about mental health and mental wellness and mental illness kind of almost like in a subcategory of things. But what we're seeing now is every office, every classroom, everyone is, I'm looking forward to meeting people who aren't struggling, because everyone I come across has had, either if they didn't have something pre-COVID, that just the earth shaking and things have just kind of disrupted. Kids have had education disrupted, all these different things that I don't think we even really know how bad or how much of the problem is here. Because a lot of people have encountered things that
we don't know yet. Right?
I mean, I think of like the anxiety levels that, just the anxiety levels among young people are higher than they've ever been. I think, what was I reading somewhere? Like school absenteeism is skyrocketed. So kids, and that's through elementary, junior high, high school, college, kids just not going to class or not being able to go to class.
Just not being able to do it right.
Yeah.
But I think what you spoke to is that person in the back of the room that says, I'm not really seen or heard, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And yet, if you have something that's a safe space for them to come into to go, maybe I'm not learning this way, or I can't learn this way because there's too much anxiety. But maybe if I can just have a place to talk about it, right? Or have a friend bring me to somewhere that I can talk about it.
Yes, and I think, yes, I would agree that having the safe spaces are definitely important, having these places where people can come and talk. But I think also we need to get it to the kitchen tables. We need to get it to, one of the things I was talking with another colleague of mine, I'm like, if we're not talking about this at church, if we're not talking about this at work, if we're not talking about it at home, like we're not going to solve the problem, because the problem is so much bigger than just like, oh, we're going to have an agency that's focused on this, or we're going to have a group that advocates that. This is impacting everyone, and even people that don't know they're being impacted have been impacted. And it's like, but we kind of keep it in this little, it's kind of like when they do like the month thing, like this month we're going to, it's like, and then they don't talk about it for 11 more months. And it's like mandatory training. Like if you've ever been on a job, it's like, all right, we're going to train you on this for an hour. And then we'll come back to it next year.
It's like your business plan. You get it out in January, and then you go, oh, it's December. I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah, and that to me, I think, is where I worry is that, there's obviously different, generational differences between how people talk about things. And how young people are being impacted by a variety of different things. And even the young workforce, like if you look at workforce absenteeism and, just there's almost like it's almost like there's a barricade between us getting back to, and I don't know that we'll ever get back to the way we were, but I think that a lot of young people and young professionals and families and young kids and teenagers, that everyone has been impacted at some level, but we don't really know what to do about that. We didn't know how to have the conversations before. And so to think that we have this problem that we're just going to magically know how to talk about things and open up, these conversations is very difficult. So it's almost like, how do we, and that's really where I think a lot of the Connection Café trainings have been, it's really been a lot about how do you have these conversations? Like, how do you talk to, yourself or people in your family? How do you open up those conversations at work? How do you open up those conversations in your peer groups? And how do you, open up those conversations in your classroom? Because that's kind of the thing too, is like no one's talking about it, so no one's talking about it, and it's so there has to be a place where people are bringing up these, like I think of like work, like that's the big one. Like I don't know that anyone. I've worked in the helping world most of my life, and I don't really remember a lot of us checking in with each other in the helping world. And
do you think the younger generation, like the kids that are in college now, do you think if you give them a safe space, they're more equipped to reach out to older people in their family and recognize the symptoms of mental health? Do you think that's kind of an awareness piece too, that maybe to reach out to their friends or their own family members that they may not have maybe recognized before?
I hope they are. I mean, I hope that. I think there's an inherent fear. I think mental illness scares people more than most other illnesses. One, we don't think of it as an illness. I think we kind of dismiss it as, just get over it, choose different things, smile, you have everything to live for. And so I don't know that we know how to talk about it because we don't really know what we understand about it. And I know it's terrifying, especially I think for parents, when your kid's struggling, you want to fix it. And I think that's a lot of where there are no quick solutions. And I think that is very, that bothers us. That it's because it's not like other illnesses. If you're sick and I give you medicine and you get better, then the medicine's working, and we just keep down that path. Where I think mental health is more of a, there's not necessarily a clear path to, like, is this ever going to be? Is it going to just go away? Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse?
How do you measure it, right?
How do you measure it? And I think that there's sometimes I think about my own family and sharing my own thoughts and feelings on my own mental health. And there's nothing worse than trying to express that you're feeling a very uncomfortable thought or feeling in someone than telling you that you're not feeling that or thinking that, and then editing
You're erasing that part of your memory, right?
It's like I'm really sad today. Well, you shouldn't be. Well, why didn't I think of that? Thank you. Now that you mentioned that, I guess I'm not sad. And so I think it's really we have to. And that's the thing, is there might not be really any clear cut solution. And I think that's really where I struggle, and why I think the cafe was such a, so I work in Danville, Illinois. And I don't know if you know much about Danville. So it's a former GM town. And, our county struggles with, a lot of different mental health issues and substance abuse issues. And there's no solution. Like, there's no, we've been talking about the shortage of mental health professionals. So like in my we're in Danville, I think on average in the United States, there's one clinical person for like every 256 people in the U.S. I think in my county, at least from the health report I read not too long ago, it's like 456 people per one mental health provider. So it's like this exceptionally horrible ratio of like, even if you want, and that's I think another problem that we don't really think about, is there's lots of people that want to get help, but what happens a lot of times is wanting to get help and having access to help aren't always the same thing. And that to me I think is very troubling, because there's lots of people that want to be healthy and be well, but the people and the things that you need to be healthy and be well aren't accessible to you. And so one of the reasons why I really focused on, there were two things I wanted to accomplish with the Connection Café. One, I truly believe that people know when you're being genuine, and people know when you're putting your best foot forward. And so my wife, so she had never seen my espresso machine. I brought it home this Thanksgiving.
It's so great. I want Joe to show a picture of that for us.
It's massive.
It's awesome.
And it's a commercial grade, like just like you would find in a coffee shop. And first question was, well, how many coffee machines do we own? And I'm like, well, how many did you see in the video? Because I don't want to. Like if you saw 3, then we have 3. If you saw 6, then we have 6. But but the idea was that I could have started the cafe and threw together some Folgers coffee in a pot. But what I really wanted to do was figure out a way to give you the highest and best product, so that you know that I'm giving you something that's truly good because I want to give you, and I don't,
comes down to value.
You know,
right?
it is. It's like when you go somewhere, you know that they're cutting corners, and you can feel like, what was I not worth the good coffee? Like, and so it's like, not only do I want you to have top quality coffee, I want you to have top quality coffee in a safe environment with peers. People so we had students interacting with people from the community. We had administration there. We had, organizational leaders were there. And it's like, we're all coming together over this product. And then the other thing that I wanted to accomplish was I didn't want to create another barricade that, well, I can't afford to buy the coffee, so I can't go to the event. And so I was kind of in this really weird place where I'm like, if you want to make high-end coffee, it's expensive.
Right.
But simultaneously, I want to make high-end coffee, but I don't want to exclude people because they can't afford to pay for it. And so that was one of the first obstacles that I faced, was how do I give you a great product, a novel idea, a good, comfortable atmosphere and environment, and also make it completely free, which sounds simple. Like, it really does. It's like,
it's
why
great
did I think of that?
idea,
Yeah, it's a great
right?
idea. Like, most people, I don't think, talk to be cured. I think they talk to be heard.
Right.
And there's a power in just someone, you saying, you know what, today's a rough day. Today I'm struggling. And someone just responding with, okay. It's okay to not be okay. I mean, it's okay to not be okay. And what I think is we all need our person. You have to have your person. And that's another charge I would, or something that I would, ask people to do in the new year, is find your person and find the person that needs you. And you don't need a whole team, but you need someone that if you check in with or they check in with you, you're going to be okay. And, just who's that person? And finding that person or finding that outlet or finding that process, even if you don't need it. It's kind of like the old, what was the old, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So, and the same thing with relationships. It's better to have a person that you can lose it with, even if you don't need them. But it's not going to be good if you need to lose it with someone and you don't have someone. And, there's all of those processes that I think, and go hang out with people. Go drink coffee with people. Go start random conversations. I mean, I do that a lot. I start a lot of random conversations. But I also like to talk to people. So
but I think it's so important. I appreciate your time. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. I want to help get the word out for you because I think people can replicate this. It doesn't have to be complicated. And like you said, it starts with an idea and then you just figure out what happens next, right? Be surrounded by the people that can help you.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go. Find your people.
Yeah.
So, or find your person.
Find your person.
Yeah.
John, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
your time.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, this has been great.
And the Joe in the back.
And the Joe. You guys, thank you so much also for tuning in today to Everyday Business Leaders. I know you were inspired to think and grow differently, maybe for your business, right? How you can get something like this involved in your own community, because that journey of growth and innovation, it never ends. And we need people like John that inspire us to think of ideas to say, we could do that too. So I'm really excited to get this episode out. And remember to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode. This is Melanie Ake signing off from JP the Geek Studio, where better IT service is just a call away. They say own it, secure it, and protect it. Until next time, remember, Everyday Leaders helps you to develop strategies to become a better leader in your life. It's not what you do in a day, it's what you do every day that makes the most impact. Happy New Year, and thanks for tuning in.